Welcome back to Worship Tech Tour, where Jake and I go to different churches of varying sizes to take an in-depth look at their entire tech setup. In this episode, we visited our friend Aaron Ellis, who is the worship leader at Deer Creek Church. And actually, Jake used to be the interim worship leader at this very church before Aaron got the job. So it was very interesting to see all of the new tech they have implemented since Jake was there. As always, if you are interested in learning more about implementing the latest tech in your worship ministry, I want to invite you to check out worshiptechschool.com, where you're going to find online courses to help you put into practice the best tools for audio, lighting, video, and more at your church. So visit worshiptechschool.com or click the link in the description to learn more. To give you a little context, Deer Creek is a mid-sized church. So they host 2 services on Sunday morning to accommodate their growing congregation, and they quite evidently look to implement a lot of new cutting-edge tech. So we're going to dive into Dante, we're going to dive into Ableton, and live streaming with Aaron here in a few minutes. But first, let's work up to the cool stuff by hearing about their current audio setup. Welcome to Deer Creek Church.
All right, so we had a consultation with Summit Integrated Systems out of Longmont. They came here and they took a look at our room and the width and the length, and they did some math there. And they came with 2 options of what we could do in a bid, and they bid out a line array system and then a point source system, which is the individual speakers just pointing at the different areas. We went with the line array system. It kind of has a better coverage for what we were looking to do, and so we actually chose the EAWs. They are the RSX series, the radial series that EAW uses. EAW is a great, really high-end speaker box. And we went with 5 on each side, and we went with that because of the coverage pattern. It was just the right amount of width, because in a room like this, you can't go too wide, or else you're going to have some reflection issues, and if you go too narrow, you're not going to be able to reach the edges very well. So it just the pattern just fit us really well, and they are also ready for Dante upon plug-in, which is Dante is a really important audio protocol system that we use here at Deer Creek to run a lot of our audio, and so we're able to talk to those speakers through Dante at any moment from back here if we're having issues. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we had an issue with one speaker that was giving us problems, and we were able to log in on Dante and actually just take that speaker out, reset it, and go again, and it worked, and we were fine. We didn't have to stop the service and get a ladder and go up there, and we're able to do stuff like that pretty easily because it's on Dante. So they're Dante ready, and that was a big reason why we chose EAWs. So subwoofers, that's right, we went with 2 boxes with 2 18-inch subs by bag ends, and we originally had the AWs spec'd out, but our stage, we wanted to put them under the stage in the center. So what we did is we went with the bag ends, because they have their subs. They have a line where I think they call them the slim line, where the subs are actually tilted back a little bit, and so we could fit 4 18-inch subs in a 15-inch space or something like that. I mean, it was 17 inches or something like that, and so it's pretty cool design. So that's why we went with bag ends, because they still had all the power that we needed. They're great. Again, they're high-end subs.
The mixer that Deer Creek uses is the Allen & Heath SQ6. And they're only using that one because the SQ7 wasn't out yet. It came out like 6 months after, and Aaron was a little bit sad about that. But Deer Creek didn't really consider any other mixing boards like Behringer or Midas. They were pretty set with their budget, price range, so they went with the SQ6 because they wanted a little bit more quality. Then the coolest thing about Deer Creek's setup is their utilization of Dante. Dante is an audio protocol that lets Deer Creek route almost all of their audio through just Cat6 cabling. The cool thing about Dante is that anything on the Dante network can be routed to anything else on the Dante network. So since the line arrays are Dante enabled, they just tap into the Dante network through Cat6 cabling, and boom, they have sound to their line arrays. And then for all of their inputs like microphones, all of those get plugged into a digital Allen & Heath Snake, which just connects to the mixer through another Cat6 cable. So Dante is a little bit confusing, and I couldn't lie and say that any of us really understand how it works, but the short and sweet of it is that most of their audio going to front of house and back of house can be routed through Cat6 Ethernet cable. Almost all of their routings are digital. The next part of Deer Creek's audio setup is their in-ear monitors and their microphones. So most of the band uses the Allen ME personal mixing consoles. The coolest thing about this monitor setup is that each one of these personal mixers can receive 48 channels from the board. So every single one of the band members can have a personal mix with 48 channels to work with. Then for Aaron or anybody else leading at the front of the stage, they use the Shure PSM 900 wireless in-ear monitor system, which allows them to mix with the SQ4U app. They don't want to use the personal mixing consoles up at the front of stage because, well, they don't look as good when they're out in the open. For microphones, they use the Shure ULXD series, so every single one of their mics is wireless. The most interesting thing about their microphone setup is that they really utilize the removable capsules. So the Shure ULXD series microphones came with SM58 capsules, but they used to have Beta 87C capsules for their wired microphones, and so they put the Beta 87Cs on the SM58s because they thought they sound better. And then Aaron actually uses the KSM9 capsule because he thinks it sounds best with his voice. So Aaron said they're always changing out capsules and trying to find what is going to sound best. Kind of cool. As far as Preacher mics, the Preacher uses a DPA 4166 head mic through the ULXD transmitter, and the Head Pastor uses the same mic but as a lapel because it kept falling off his head. I guess modern problems require modern solutions. But then the last piece of their audio setup is their crowd microphones. So they have Audio-Technica choir mics that they just repurpose to be crowd mics. It's pretty cool. So they can route those to in-ear monitors for air and room feel, and it's also cool because they can mix that into their live stream so that people watching online can get a little bit of the room feel as well. But that is it for audio. Let's go into the next section of their tech setup with lighting.
When we did the audio upgrade and we also added video equipment, because of the video equipment that we added, we wanted to make sure that our lighting was sufficient for the video equipment. But we added 4 moving heads to the front bar here, and they're washes. They're just basic washes, so that we can control it from the soundboard with the joystick. We can have them go wherever we want. And that was just to make sure that we knew that we were getting good lighting everywhere, because the lighting was kind of poor in here. And anytime we wanted to make an adjustment, we had to get out this super massive extension ladder and get all the way up there. And it was just, so if we wanted to make an adjustment between services, we couldn't do it. I mean, it was totally ridiculous. So we got the moving heads, that was cool. We also have just some PAR 64 cans up there, kind of old school. We have those pointing at specific areas that I think we have one pointing at the drummer. We have one pointing stage right, stage left, and those light the kind of the more static areas that you know, if we have someone standing in that spot, we can light them pretty easily. Everything on the bar is white light, warm light. I actually learned from a video that Jake posted from Red Rocks about good lighting practice. And so all of our colored lights are here on the stage, and they work as either backlighting, side lighting, and just to add some texture. And all of our color comes from lights that happen on the stage. So we have a couple moving heads that are pretty low powered, but they get the job pretty well done with some color mixing that we're able to do. We have some static highlighting here. We have some a couple that point at the cross, some spots that point at the cross, and some other colored LED lights. All of our colored lights are LED. We don't have to use gels anymore or anything like that. We have some backlighting here on a pole as well that kind of lights up, and that the ones that we have as the backlighting, that's kind of so that we just have more going on the platform. So we don't do sets or anything. We don't try to build sets. We don't try to say, okay, let's build this, you know, cool manger scene and light it up kind of fancy. We don't really do that anymore. So our lighting is our background. That's what you're looking at. So when you're looking at the platform, it's like, okay, there you go. Their lighting is their background. That's what makes the background more interesting and kind of fun to look at, I guess. So this is our lighting console here. It's an Elation Show Designer, and I programmed these presets. That's why these stickers are here. I programmed these presets, so here's the pre-service, and then I'll hit this, and the lighting will change for the call to worship, the beginning, the setup of the whole worship service, and then S1, S2, that's song 1, song 2, song 3, give for offering, S4. We call our time where people turn and shake hands, we call it the minute mingle, so that's mingle here. Sermon, prayer after the sermon, tightens up the lighting, so when the preacher prays at the end of a sermon, all the back edges will totally go black, and then it's a more focused, two tight focused lights on the preacher, so that the band could come up on the platform and not be super distracting on the video. Because, you know, if the band's not darkened out, you can see us talking in the background to each other, like, oh, you want to do that? Oh, yeah, you want to do no, good shit, yeah, do that. And so we wanted to black it out so that the band's not super distracting, especially on the video. That's where you notice it the most.
The last cool piece of this Elation Show Designer is there's a joystick that can adjust all of the movers individually. What's cool about this lighting setup is that though they do not automate any lighting changes with Ableton, although they're using Ableton, they are able to change all of their lighting scenes with just a push of a button, and it is super easy and simple. Another major part of lighting and the next section of Deer Creek's tech setup is their visual displays. So the software that they use to control their visual displays is ProPresenter, which they have running on a Mac Mini. As far as displays themselves go, they have a pretty simple screen with a pretty simple projector, and then they also have a confidence monitor. So it's a pretty simple setup. Again, Aaron runs Ableton during worship for click and tracks, but they do not automate any of their lyric changes. With that being said, let's hear a little bit more about Aaron's Ableton and Dante setup, because it is pretty sweet.
So this is what a typical Ableton setup looks like for us on the screen here on a Sunday morning. The cool thing, here's my favorite part, because I could do this anywhere in the building, is as long as I can tie into Dante, I can set up our tracks. Sometimes I do it in my office too, and I just tie into Dante there. But we have a Dante tie line here, so I just plug it in here. I set up my tracks from here, and typically, so usually I'll have my extra hard drive sitting here that has all of our tracks that we get from different areas, whether we make them or I get them from multi-tracks or anywhere we get those. Pretty basic actually, but we do run it out through the Dante sound card. I'll show you in the preferences here. I'll show you how that works in the audio output device. You can see the Dante virtual sound card show up there. Cool thing is I can set that, I didn't mention this earlier. You can set that up. I'm gonna show you what that looks like here. So if I bring up, here's the Dante virtual sound card. I can actually stop this, which will actually break it for a moment here. So it's not talking to Ableton anymore. But check this out. I can go all the way up to 64 in and 64 out, just like that. I don't have to buy a massive interface. I can just do it here. But all I need is 8. So I'm only gonna use 8 because I'm gonna try to save some processing power there. But I have used up to 64 with no processing issues whatsoever. So it works super well. And the other thing is, you wouldn't believe the audio quality. It's worlds different than what I was using before with the interface that I was using before, which is probably pretty similar to a lot of the interfaces that many other worship leaders are using or other churches are using. But the audio quality coming off of this, I noticed a massive difference instantly. Because I wasn't running it over 1/4 inch, having to convert it to XLR through a DI box, which can get super expensive. Because if you need to buy either that many DI boxes or you buy the one, big radial 8-channel DI box, that's like $800. It's crazy. So I have all this routed out as Jake taught me there in his Ableton course there. And actually, pretty simple. I don't use a MIDI. Not at this point. I have in the past, but right now don't need it. A MIDI controller to fire off the tracks. Our drummer does it, and I have everything just in between songs. So it's just so once we're done with the first song, here's the first song playing. Once this song's over, it actually will loop with the transition, the pad that comes up, so we can do some talking, and then the cursor just keeps moving, keeps looping, and then the drummer will just hit number 2 for song number 2. So it works really well. Our setup here, super proud of our Dante setup. Actually saves us a lot of time and money because we're not spending time having to set up extra cables and money having to buy extra DIs, and just all that stuff is just right over the network, and it works really well.
The last piece of Deer Creek's tech setup is their cameras and their live streaming setup. They currently have 2 Panasonic robotic cameras that they can move with a controller. They have the capability to get more cameras, but this is all they're using at the moment. What's great about their camera setup is they have preset camera scenes and movements, so whatever volunteer may be happening to run the cameras can just push a button and it will go to that preset scene. They don't have to worry about doing it necessarily the right way every time because it does it the right way on its own every time. All of the camera inputs go into a Blackmagic switcher, which then outputs through a raw switch, which allows them to send any video feed to pretty much any display in the whole building. They have all of their displays routed to this switch, which is pretty nifty. The main recording that they do is through an SD card in the Blackmagic switch. So before they started live streaming, they were just recording services. And then Aaron says they started live streaming with the purpose to let people kind of see what the service is like. Aaron believes that it is a need to have some pretty major visual aspects because people are more inclined to watch rather than to listen. So let's sit down in Aaron's studio to learn a little bit more about their live streaming setup.
So this is our multi-purpose media room, basically. There's a lot that happens in here. This is also my office. So this is where I hang out most days in the week. But the live stream, this is the critical place on Sunday mornings. On Sunday mornings, this is the live stream studio. So what happens is we have a live stream operator, and what they do is they're in charge of 2 things. They are in charge of remixing the audio for the live stream. So they sit here and they listen. They have 2 options. They actually have 3 options they can listen to, which is pretty critical, because most people are listening to your audio off of really junky Mac, built-in Mac speakers. Okay, for as much as you pay for your MacBook Pro, I mean seriously, the speakers are really crappy.
So because the general viewer normally does not have the best sounding speakers, what the live stream mixer will do is they do mix 3 different times. So they will mix through the KRK V6s, then some cheap headphones with a flat sound, and then finally through the TV speakers to really get the worst sound experience you could possibly get. And all of this mixing is done through an Allen & Heath SQ5, which is Dante enabled. So all of the audio gets sent through the Dante network from the SQ6 in the tech booth. Then the sound engineer running the live stream will mix it through the SQ5, and then it will get sent back to the tech booth where the audio gets embedded into the video, and then it gets sent back into the studio where the now video and audio is sent to the streaming software Wirecast. It is a complicated live streaming setup because of all of the crazy routing that they have going on, but it works really well for their context and circumstance, and Aaron is pretty happy with the live streaming setup that they have. But that is it. That is it for Deer Creek's Worship Tech Tour. They have a relatively complicated setup because of Dante, but it's super clean, and honestly, Dante makes their lives so easy with most of their audio being digitally routed. If you are interested in learning how to implement things like Dante into your worship ministry, then I want to invite you to check out Worship Tech School, where you're going to find online courses to help you implement the best tools for audio, lighting, video, and more at your church. So visit Worship Tech School or click the link in the description to learn more. But that is it for this Worship Tech Tour. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you in the next episode.